So we're going to take a look at 3 different types of chisel today. The first at the top is a beveled chisel, a firmer chisel and a mortise chisel. The first things first, looking at the edges, they're in not very good condition. I don't know what they've been sharpened with, but it wasn't done properly. When I show you how to sharpen it properly, I'm going to grind them back to 25 degrees first, which is the correct angle, and then hone them to between 27 and 30 degrees to get a really sharp edge, and then I'll show you how to use them safely. So this is our Viceroy sharpener, so it will sharpen things like chisels. It's a 16-inch stone, very rarely needs replacing, but it's really important to use the whole width of the stone and not stay in one area when it's moving. Gradually grind back. I don't know if you can see, but on the end I have this small, very soft piece of metal, this burr, which indicates that actually it's a good thing. I'm now going to hone that off on a whetstone. Just to remove that. So just over here I have a little whetstone that I'm just going to apply some honing oil and just remove. So I spent a few more minutes on it and that's a lot better now. I'm going to test that on a piece of wood. So that's the bevel. I'm going to do a firmer chisel now using the same process, and I'll come back to this in a moment. I mean, if you look at the bench at the moment, it simply is not good practice. We've got a chisel on the edge that could easily flip and go into somebody's foot. Again, it's untidy, it's unsafe. So what we need to do when we're working with sharp tools is in the middle of our bench. On this one we have this, we can lift the lid off. We have a well, and in the well we can put our tools. That way they don't roll off the table. So we never ever give a tool to somebody. They're asking for one, they want to borrow one of our tools, that's absolutely fine. Just put it down, allow them to pick it up. So very quickly, to mark out my piece of wood, put a little line on the top. To mark out the thickness, place my wood on the line. Small mark, tri-square it back on. So remember, no gap. Push the tri-square right up to the wood. I know that this piece of wood is 100 millimeters wide, so every 20 I'm going to mark off. 40, 60 and 80. Just 2 simple dovetails, and here we go. So I am going to 1, and there you go. Very, very simple dovetail. Now I want to remove that piece of wood. So this is my waste. Okay, and what will happen when the other piece of wood I've marked and cut this out and goes in there, this wedge shape will stop it from coming out. So although this is a very, very strong joint, it's a very, very old joint. So the Romans were using this. If you go to the British National History Museum, you'll also see some evidence that the Egyptians were using a dovetail thousands of years ago, and it's still a popular joint today. So I'm going to cut this out very quickly on the bandsaw. I'm just going to do a series of cuts down here, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to use the chisels. Thank you. So I'm just going to nibble away at this, take a few more pieces out. most of the material may come off with the band tool. Back into the workshop. So we've done our series of cuts to remove a lot of material. Now we want to come right down to this line. We're going to use our bevel chisel because this is the ideal tool for this. This bevel on the edge will allow us to get right into that corner. So I'm going to use the back of the chisel again. This time I'm not going to the line just yet. I don't want to take a lot of material off. Halfway. And gradually going to work towards the line. Just at the line now. Yeah, just going to go halfway through. Using the back of the chisel, gradually getting to the lines, baby steps. So my thumb is on the back, fingers in the front, everything behind the blade. And now the reverse side. So I'm going to give myself a quick line. Clamp up, especially when we're using chisels. Okay, back of the chisel again, just removing a little bit at a time, and go and gradually work towards the line. Don't try and attempt to take everything off in one go. You want to be in control of the chisel. Same on this side, just work towards that line. Enjoy it. Put the radio on. Just take your time. That last little bit in the middle. For that last little bit in the middle, I'm going to use a pairing technique. So again, thumb on the front, forefinger at the back to guide it for height, and then just gently take off that middle bit in there. And now you can see that the edge of the bevel can allow you to get right into that corner. And that's what. Fine, going to work on this side, just encourage it off, little bits at a time, work up, work up. And now you can flatten out. It just allows you to get right into that corner. Haven't used a mallet. Nice sharp chisel. If it's not sharp, sharpen it. Get Sir to do it if you can't. Alright, then to finish. So we've made our two dovetails. Now I want to join it to that piece of wood, and eventually it's going to look something like that. So in order to do that, I'm going to place one top of the other and just line them up really carefully. Now here I want to mark out as close to that edge as I possibly can at the bottom. I'm not going to use a pen because a pen is actually quite a wide mark, and I want to get as close to that edge as I possibly can. So I have a couple of choices. I could use a craft knife to try and get in there. I could use a traditional marking out knife. Not everybody has got one of these, but that does get me right into that corner. Now the other tool I could use is a metalwork scriber, and that would get me right in. So my tool of choice is a scriber, but whatever you've got at home, what will get you into that corner is absolutely fine. Now if I wanted to, what I could do is now go over those lines with a pen so that I can see them. I'm okay with that. Now I need to again mark off the thickness of the material. For that I will need a pen. So there's my mark, and then across, and now I need to take my line straight down. So I'm going to go back to my dovetail marker, and this time I just need to go straight down. And now I can bring, if I want to go over that mark that I made earlier, so you can see that better, that's a perfect tool for this. Straight down. Did I not do that last one? There you go. And now they're ready to cut out. What I am going to do is mark out the rear as well, because these are not going straight across the wood. Really do recommend, if you're taking out woodwork, to get one of these dovetail jigs markers. I'll put the link and the manufacturer on the description below at the back. So same process. Just going to mark off this of the wood. Right, so for my students at school, I'm hoping you'll remember what type of saw this is. This is indeed a back saw. The number of teeth on here is 24 per inch. And if you remember, the tenon saws that we use at school are about 12, 14. So these teeth, ouch, are much finer. Okay, so I'm looking to get, and now remember, this is on the inside of my dovetail. So I want to remove. So this is where I'm keeping that piece of wood. I'm keeping that piece of wood, and the piece I'm going to remove, and if I just go over this is my waist, and this is my waist, and this is my waist. So those two bits will stick out and come through there. So I don't want to cut on that side of the line, I want to cut on this side of the line. So I'm going to use my finer saw and then just leave the line. I'm going to do one at a time. May take a little bit longer. Leave the line. I can always file up to it later. Again, leave the line. Nice and relaxed. Take it down to the line. Okay. So these outside bits are quite easy to remove. So again, I'm going to use. I'm going to start here, draw it back 3 times, away I go. Again, leave the line, folks. It helps if your wood is straight. Just take your time. Lovely. So, outside bit's quite easy, but this inside bit, what I'm going to do is do a series of cuts. Make it nice and straight. Series of cuts. there's my first one, up next to the line. There's my second one there, and I can just, as many cuts in here as you possibly can, and you have lots of cuts going down. So I'm going to go over to my bandsaw and just do that. Then I'm going to come back and show you how to use the chisel to remove that section there at the end and tidy it up. Then to finish, I've got a triangular file or a 3-square file. So that will also get me into that tight little corner. I can just finish it off. Get rid of all those loose bits. And there you have it. But you can see how our objective is to get the bevel chisel right in the edge. I'll show you with the firmer. The thickness of the firmer on that edge there won't allow you to get into that gap. So you could change the angle, but it's not worth doing. It's not designed for that. Use the bevel chisel. Go back to my bevel edge chisel, and what I'm going to do is set it up again, clamp it to the bench. I could do some paring work, P-A-R-I-N-G, and use my thumb and forefinger and just hold it, always hold it behind the blade, and then very gently remove the wood. I'm not going to use a mallet for this. Okay, so just very gently removing the material, only going over up to the halfway mark, looking at my line, make sure I don't go over that line. Okay, and the same on the other side. The line is everything. Turn it round so I can see it, and then just very, very gently, again, forefinger underneath, thumb over the top, and this is the steering. So all your steering is being done with the left hand, and then the power, not much in this case. If you've got a sharp chisel, it comes off very quickly, like this one. So if you are forcing it, you might want to sharpen the chisel, because you're going to damage the joint. You don't have control over it. It's a lot safer to have a sharper chisel. Just gently, bit by bit. Yeah, I don't want to go over there. If I go over the edge, I risk chipping the wood, and it might split on the edge. That's called chip out. So I really don't want to go to that edge. I'm trying to avoid it. It's a nice piece of wood. So that final cut, I'm going to use my saw again. Always have a line to cut to, and then up to the line, but don't touch it. Get to the end, don't rush it, just take your time. No one's forcing anything. Yeah, we always cut in the vertical. So if you're tempted to cut across, don't. Come back to the vertical. Turn that over. There you go. Again, that last little bit. We have a trial fit. good, so it won't go on, not yet. So I'm going to use a combination of my chisel just now really to come up to that line. It really will be little bits. Okay, it's a pairing technique that I'm using. I'm resting my finger on the back of the board and just pushing forward, trying to keep it. See the chip out? I was tempted, I rushed, I've gone over the edge, didn't want to do that. Students will be screaming at the video now. So I'm going to do some straight cuts. I'm going to take a few of these edges off on the bandsaw and I'll come back to you later. So there's my marking out, there's my line, so my drill is inside the line. Now I can remove this material with the firmer chisel and the mortise chisel. This time we want to use a firmer chisel and a mortise chisel, and to remove this piece of wood, so I want to make a puzzle project which I'll show you a bit later. So I drilled a few holes, and this slot I want to remove rather than just using a chisel to remove everything. It's a lot easier to drill out the waste first as much as you possibly can, and using the back of the firmer chisel, that's the front where you can see the edge, you place the back on the line and then gradually you can work across, find the groove of the last cut. Just keep working across. Same on this side. Keep working it down. Now obviously, I'm just going to get to that end. I can't, the gap, the width of the hole or the slot that I'm trying to make is smaller than the width of the firmer chisel. And that's where I use the mortise chisel. Same principle. Back just on the inside of that line and just work through. So I've marked it out on both sides, the same principle. I will go halfway through here, turn it over, and then I will remove the other half and complete my slot. So notice I've turned the chisel over to use it more now as a wedge. And you can gradually remove that wood. Hands behind the blade at all times. Okay, and there you go. And I'll show you what the final puzzle project looks like in a second. This term we're going to look at making a three-dimensional puzzle made from plywood. Plywood, as you can see, is made from layers of wood, normally odd numbers, that are glued together in opposite directions. So one wood going this way and then the next layer going the other way. So it's a very stiff, stable board that's very versatile for a number of projects.